If you want to write a treble clef, it looks kind of complicated, but there are a couple ways that you can write a treble clef. So if you want to practice writing treble clef, you may need to write a treble clef at some point. So it looks complicated, it isn't that bad. There are two ways to write a treble clef, well more really, and it depends on how famous clef to be than anything else. A simple way is just to write a line and then just this kind of shape here. Or some people get really simplistic and just write something like that. If this is too hard for you, you can try something like that. For a more fancy clef, try this. They all mean the same thing. Briefly, in review about the treble clef. This is the clef used mostly to give notation for higher pitched voices or high instruments like the violin or the oboe. Guitars, treble clef as well. Sometimes in guitar music you'll see a little 8 under the treble clef. That's because the guitar actually plays the music an octave lower than it's written. Tenors also read treble clef sometimes in this manner. We already talked about the mnemonic devices you can use. If you choose not to, just as a quick reminder, if we start on middle C, we can just go up the alphabet. Up step one letter at a time up the alphabet. But remember, we only go to the letter G before we start again on A. Okay, that's treble clef. Now when you play the piano, the music often has 2 clefs. And some other instruments such as the bass, the cello, the tuba, trombone, a lot of other instruments read the bass clef. The bass clef, just like the treble clef, is also called the G clef. The bass clef is also called the F clef. Now, I'm sure we could say that it looks like an F, but that would probably be a big stretch. More importantly, you see these 2 little dots on the F clef, or the bass clef. They are straddling the line that indicates the note F. So, if you only want to remember one line and then figure out all your other notes in relation to that, that's all you need to know. This is an F clef, which means this note is F. And from there, as long as you know the alphabet, you could figure anything else out, right? Just from that, you could say this note here, going backward in the alphabet, F, E, D, C. That note is a C. So, for those of you who don't like to remember a whole bunch of stuff, just remember this is the F clef, and this is the G clef, and you'll be fine. But some people prefer those crazy mnemonic devices they learned in school. So, for the bass clef, we have one for the lines. I actually have 2 for these. The traditional one, good boys do fine always, gets a little confusing because we had every good boy does fine. Good boys do fine always. That's a little too similar. I asked my class one semester here at Northwest Vista College, what other mnemonic device could you use? Maybe one about girls, so everything's not about boys all the time. And she came up with girls, better, dine, fine, always. So you can use that too. Either way. And then, of course, for the spaces, some people say all cows eat grass, but that's not really true. We all remember the mad cow incidents. And some people say all cars eat gas, but that's not true anymore either, right? We're hoping for electric cars, so maybe you'll have to come up with a new one that's more current. I like all cows eat grass. It's close to the truth. Okay, so with the bass clef, one thing you might think about, one reason we have the bass clef, is to avoid having a whole bunch of ledger lines below the treble clef. So, this this middle C here and this C here, they are the exact same pitch. If you think about moving the clefs together, you can imagine a staff with 11 lines, and middle C would be the one that runs through the middle. We don't put the staff so close together so that if we need to have these notes go down a little lower, these go up a little higher, there's room for them. But if they were really smooshed together, this C would be the one joining the two staffs. So when I go over to a piano and play middle C, it's in the middle. That's why we call it middle C. It's also the note that's around the middle of your vocal range. I'm going to try to play a middle C right now. If you're a man, usually that note is toward the top of your comfortable singing range, maybe just before you have to switch into falsetto. And if you're a woman, that's usually toward the lower side of your register. So it's in the middle. And in the piano, it's in the middle of the keyboard, roughly. That's middle C. Now, going down, again, thinking about the alphabet, if I were going down, I'd go C, B, A, G, F, or going up. F, G, A, B, C. What note is that? What do you think? This one was F, E, D, C, B, A. Or, remember, all cows eat grass. What note is that? Yes, this note here is E. Again, if you think A, G, F, E, then you would get this E. This note right here corresponds to a note up here. Can you tell me which one? This is middle C. So C, D, E. This E and this E are the exact same note. Why do we have two different ways of writing the same note? Well, for one thing, because some instruments play primarily low notes, so they read off the bass clef, and some instruments play primarily high notes. And of course, if you're playing the piano, one of your hands is going to be on the lower side of the keyboard, and one of your hands will be on the higher side of the keyboard. So that's another reason why we have these two different clefs.